Coming up now on Animal Outtakes, we're taking a closer look at our environment and how we can keep it healthy and thriving.
I think a lot of this movement is creating a culture change in America around single-use items.
One city is trying its best to curb the effects of plastic pollution by approving an ordinance banning some single-use plastics.
Now we're going to expose it to these chemicals and see what happens over time to both the toilet paper and the plastic.
Our Inspector Planet is in the lab. She'll show us how the natural environment can influence pollution and its breakdown. And we're heading outside to see what interesting critters we have in our own backyard.
The double-crested cormorant can swim and dive really deep for the sake of catching its prey. And in some areas of the world, it can actually dive up to 100 feet.
This and much more straight ahead on Animal Outtakes. Plastics. We use them every day, from straws, cups, and bags to diapers, packaging, and dog bowls. This common material is having an impact on our environment and our animals. But there are people who are trying to get the word out and educate folks about the importance of recycling and eliminating single-use plastics. In fact, one city is dedicated to minimizing the amount of plastic waste its residents and visitors produce by eliminating common single-use objects. So many of us remember, Stevie, a movie so many years ago where it was stated, plastics. Plastics is the future.
Yep.
Well, what went wrong?
Everything. It started off as a good idea, and I think it got a little carried away. You're seeing plastics everywhere, and there's a lot of important needs in the medical community and things for plastics, but it's gotten out of hand, I think.
But it truly turns our ecosystem upside down. Florida beaches, the sparkling sand and the inviting water. Let's face it, this is why most people come to Florida. Right here in Sarasota County, you'll find one of the most beautiful beaches in the nation. And being one of the best, you definitely don't expect to see this trash.
This is why people live here. This is why we have so many people visit here, and so many jobs depend on our natural environment here in Sarasota being beautiful. And so I think we all need to pitch in at every level to keep it that way and do what we can.
We are here in Sarasota County, Florida, and you're doing something about it. Tell us about this program.
Sure, yeah. Well, there's a lot of initiatives the city of Sarasota has around plastic pollution. And one of them is that we passed a single-use plastics ordinance, a law that prohibits styrofoam, polystyrene, from being used in a lot of our locations throughout the city. And styrofoam is particularly bad because it breaks down into those tiny little pieces that can be ingested by wildlife. And we also made single-use drinking straws available only upon request. And really, although our ordinance is a good first step, it's really a small portion of being able to impact the problem. So we tried to leverage that to do a lot of education around the issue of plastic pollution, how it's really becoming a major environmental challenge.
Now you have an equally challenging title, and that,
Yeah.
that is?
Sustainability Manager.
Tell us in a few words, if you can, what does that truly mean?
Sure, I work for the city of Sarasota trying to make our operations more sustainable, have a low impact on the environment, and I also work on community policies and plans to do the same thing.
We've heard how plastic pollution is a global issue, but Stevie says they are feeling and seeing the impact locally as well. Beach cleanups over the last 4 years has produced lots of plastic trash. More than 70,000 cigarette butts and more than 6,000 other pieces of plastic have been collected on local Sarasota beaches. And that's just the plastics that were picked up. Most end up heading straight into the water, causing problems for the animals. A study from Sarasota-based Moten Marine Laboratory and Aquarium examined 142 sea turtle hatchlings that were found washed up on the shore. and more than 70% of them were found to have ingested plastic. So you're seeing this in the turtles.
Yes.
Where else are we seeing this?
We're seeing it everywhere. We're seeing it in our freshwater canals. We're seeing it in even our drinking water in some circumstances. So there's definitely, it's infiltrating all things. And I think one of the big issues within the plastic pollution is that plastics break down into smaller pieces called microplastics. And that's really what the environmental problem is, are these microplastics, because you don't see them very well. So it's hard to really impact them and to do something about it. But microplastics are a problem from the larger plastics like the one you have in your hand.
The city of Sarasota tackled this very important subject. Was it embraced? I know it was voted on by the commissioners, so obviously they embraced it. But what about the community? What are you hearing from them?
Well, I should say that this all started by community members meeting with us and asking and demanding for us to pass an ordinance like this. So it absolutely started from community movement, asking us to consider this. And then from the business community, I was really nervous about how it would be taken, but overwhelming support, especially for the polystyrene or styrofoam portion. The straws, I think people were nervous about, and one thing that we did at the City of Sarasota was we worked closely with our community members living with a disability, who many really need a straw to drink from when they're out and about. And so that's why we structured our policy with their input to be an upon request policy where they can get a plastic straw if they request one. To meet their needs and not disproportionately impact them. But with all of that together and the policy that we landed on, it was really unanimously approved, and I think by our city commission, and really welcomed by the community.
And unanimously accepted by the community. Yeah. So bravo!
Thank you. I think we have a lot of levels of responsibility on this, but for individuals, just to think about any single-use plastic item that you use once and then throw away, if you have an opportunity to replace that with something that's reusable. And I encourage everybody to really do an inventory of their life and anything that's a single-use plastic item to try to replace it. And especially when you're out here on a beach where it's windy, like right now, it's windy and things can blow so easily, and it's unintentional, but try to use reusable and things that can biodegrade in the natural environment.
According to the latest data from the United States Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, the U.S. produces more than 35,000 tons of plastics every year, and most of it goes right in the trash. So the best way to prevent plastic pollution is by reducing the amount of plastics you use in the first place. Coming up next on Animal Outtakes, we now know the harm plastics can cause our environment and the animals in it. But why? What is it that makes plastics so harmful? Our Inspector Planet is heading to the lab to find out. That's next.
People have asked me what it'll cost to restore all the corals back the way they remember. But I have to ask them, what will it cost if we don't do anything?
Every dog deserves a lifelong, loving home. Dante's Den provides a pristine, comfortable haven for dogs that have been abandoned or surrendered by their owners. We ensure every pup in our Joyful Dogs adoption program receives lots of love and attention, is properly immunized, spayed or neutered, and is in good health. Prospective pet parents undergo a thorough adoption review to ensure a lifetime of love and care. Find your new furry best friend at Dante's Den. For more information, go to dantesden.org or call us at 941-219-3730. Dante's Den, continuing the love. Science is everywhere and it's all around us. It's observing the world, forming questions, and the willingness to find the answers. It's something our Inspector Planet does every day, and you can too.
My name is Dr. Tracy Fanara, research scientist and environmental engineer. At Mote Marine Laboratory, I use investigation and experimentation to answer questions. Over 8 million tons of plastic waste enters our oceans every year. That's like 1.33 million elephants worth of trash in our ocean. How does that plastic get there? Are people actually throwing it into the water? Well, not likely. As we're seeing here, there's all this plastic waste that's thrown all over the land, and every single drop of rain in the state of Florida goes to a natural water body, and so does all that trash on the ground. But why are we just seeing plastic waste everywhere? Why aren't we seeing cardboard or hamburgers or sandwiches? I think we need to do an experiment. Let's go into the lab and see why all we're seeing is plastic. Now we're back at the lab and we want to find out why all we saw out there was plastic. So we're going to compare something like toilet paper to plastic and expose them to conditions that you might see in the natural environment. With climate change, the oceans are warming and the pH is dropping, becoming more acidic. So I used some vinegar and I heated it up to see if we can speed up this degradation process so you're not here all day. Okay, well, I think we've reached a substantially low pH for what we want to do here. It's a pH of around 1. So we're going to put the toilet paper in this flask and the plastic in this one. Now we're going to expose it to these chemicals and see what happens over time to both the toilet paper and the plastic. So now they're exposed, and we're going to give it just a little bit of time. And in the ocean, we have currents, we have waves, we have interaction. So we're going to stir this up a little bit to see if that jumbles anything up or creates that breakdown process. There we go. There we go. Wow, and we can see already that the toilet paper is starting to come apart. So after just a little bit of time, we see that the toilet paper is disintegrating. So not only are these items exposed to environmental conditions, but they're also exposed to microbes that can break down natural or organic materials like toilet paper or food waste, which is why we're not seeing that so much in the natural environment. So let's see what happened with the plastic. Wow. Yep, that is danger because I don't see any degradation whatsoever on this piece of plastic. It is totally fine. Not only does plastic not really break down with increasing temperatures and lower pH, but also those microbes that break things down like toilet paper or food waste can't consume plastic, which is why we see so much in the ocean for so long. So just like all of this plastic that we found outside right by the water, it's going to take a long time to break down. And when it does, because it's not broken down by microbes into nutrients, it's broken down into little particles called microplastics. Now, microplastics persist in the environment and are eaten by little organisms like little fish, and then are eaten by bigger organisms and eventually come to us. So now we know that even when plastic degrades, it turns into millions of little particles that impact the ecosystem and the food chain from the ground up, eventually affecting our health. So you might think that all this plastic can be easily recycled, but in fact, only a few types can, and it's always downcycled. The best thing that you can do is reduce the amount of plastic in the environment by eliminating or reducing single-use waste. That's plastic that you only use once. Remember guys, anyone can be a scientist or an engineer with some passion, hard work, and an innate curiosity of how the world works. Now, let's go pick up some trash.
Coming up next on Animal Outtakes, what's in your backyard? We're exploring what interesting animals we can find when we stop and just slow down for a moment and take a look. From tiny creatures to big predators, chances are your backyard is filled with interesting animals. And sometimes it's the ones that are often overlooked that are the most fascinating.
You can find wildlife everywhere, whether you're in your backyard or the local park. There are animals to be seen. And sometimes you just need to follow those little clues like a hole in the dirt or a ripple in the water to find things that you didn't know were there before. So this is the double-crested cormorant. Double-crested cormorants are water birds. There's actually a smaller one in the water right now next to it too. But being a water bird, they hunt underneath the surface of the water. They're swimming through it so that they can find their prey. And unlike ducks that have oil across their feathers, the cormorant doesn't have this oil. So the purpose of the oil is to keep the water from getting too stuck to the feathers. And since this animal doesn't have that, it's actually got to adjust its behavior in order to dry off. So it'll fan its wings out like that, almost looking like it's calling Batman, so that wind and sun can let evaporation take its course and it can dry off in time. The double-crested cormorant can swim and dive really deep for the sake of catching its prey. And in some areas of the world, it can actually dive up to 100 feet. Now, if you ever want to get a really good look at a double-crested cormorant up close, all you have to do is go kayaking, because these birds are super smart and they have learned that if a kayaker is near, a lot of the times they can swim right under them and catch fish easier, because through the process of kayaking, humans are stirring up the sand, the sediment, and the seagrass beds, which startles fish out of their hiding spots. Animals are not the only exciting thing that you can find outside. Trees, plants, they're really cool too. And right now we're looking at the black mangrove. And if you notice, along the ground we have all of these little spikes poking out. These are actually some of the roots. And in this environment, in estuaries, we've got brackish water and lots of salt, lots of sand. So whenever a tree like this has roots that can come up out of the ground, it actually helps with the carbon dioxide and oxygen exchange, and it helps with the nutrients getting into the tree like they need as well. The mangroves are protected. You are not allowed to cut them down or trim them unless you have a really special permit. And this is really, really important, not only because it's a really great animal habitat, but we need mangroves, especially along the coastal areas, because mangroves are so strong, and those roots, the branches, they actually absorb a lot of the shock from winds and water when we have our hurricanes. The more mangroves we can have and protect and grow, the better. And we're so lucky to get to see them right now. Right now, this little blue heron is hanging out amongst all these roots of the red mangrove. We have such a great view of these prop roots, which are hanging down from the mature branches into the water. The red mangrove is actually named because of the slight red color of those roots. And those roots are working to protect the rest of the tree from salt, which is so dense within this water, with us being in a brackish area. That salt is not good for the body of the tree, so it has a number of mechanisms to keep it out. And if any salt gets through the roots into the tree, it actually sends them to what we call sacrificial leaves. Those are the oldest leaves on the tree. So the salt is directed to those leaves, and then they turn yellow. And if they yellow and drop from the tree, the next oldest leaves are targeted for the salt uptake. Along with all the animals and plants that you might find in your backyard, you might also find trash. Trash, like plastics, are often found where wildlife live, and they can mistake it for the things that they normally eat. So Take 3 for the Sea is a worldwide hashtag going around so that we can help save these animals and prevent them from eating it on accident. Take 3 for the Sea means picking up 3 pieces of trash on a daily basis. And working as a team, we can help clean up our environment and prevent these animals from getting hurt because of our mistakes with our trash. That's Take 3 for the Sea. Take 3 for the Sea. Take 3 for the Sea.
Stay with us. There's more animal outtakes coming up next. Every dog deserves a lifelong, loving home. Dante's Den provides a pristine, comfortable haven for dogs that have been abandoned or surrendered by their owners. We ensure every pup in our Joyful Dogs adoption program receives lots of love and attention, is properly immunized, spayed or neutered, and is in good health. Prospective pet parents undergo a thorough adoption review to ensure a lifetime of love and care. Find your new furry best friend at Dante's Den. For more information, go to dantesden.org or call us at 941-219-3730. Dante's Den, continuing the love. Animal Outtakes is produced by Dante's Den Foundation, a nonprofit group dedicated to creating the best life for dogs. If you would like to learn more about Dante's Den, donate, or volunteer, visit our website, dantesden.org. This is Benson, and Benson is a Newfoundland, and he is our 2019 winner of our fundraiser, Top Dog. He won it handedly. But before he was profiled at Top Dog, he had to get his teeth brushed. So, Dr. Greiner, show us how this is done.
You can use a regular toothbrush if you're bold and daring. The finger brushes work a lot easier. There are a variety of toothpaste you can put on there. I like the enzymatic toothpaste because it actually breaks down the food particles that are left in there. And it also usually tastes pretty good. Now, dog mouth is a little bit different than ours. In humans, most of our saliva comes in underneath the tongue, and so that's where we tend to get most of our tartar accumulation. In dogs, most of their saliva comes in over their big cheek teeth. And if you look at their gums, there's a little groove, and a lot of that saliva runs down that groove over their canine teeth. Their upper teeth actually come outside the lower teeth, so as they're chewing, it tends to scrape off some of that debris. So with dogs, our main focus is going to be the upper teeth. And he's got a little bit of tartar way in the back. I don't know if you can zoom in on that at all. But that's mostly where his tartar is. And I find it easier to just come right along the top. You can let their lip go. You can actually feel what you're doing with these little toothbrushes and focus it mainly on their upper teeth. And I would switch my finger and do it on the other side for the uppers on the right hand, his left, my right. And if you can do that daily, it really tremendously decreases the amount of tartar that they get on their teeth. You'll hear a little bit about home dentistry. Some of the technicians and some of the groomers in particular will actually advertise dental cleanings. The problem with that is they are just getting the stuff on the outside of the teeth. They're not getting anything on the inside of the mouth at all. Same with brushing the teeth. You're not getting the underside of the arcade at all. So if they're starting to get a lot of tartar on their teeth, they really need a professional cleaning. And in order to do that, we have to literally anesthetize them, make sure that we get a tube down their windpipe with a good seal on it, because we use an ultrasonic scaler with a water spray. And if they inhale that water, it's just loaded with bacteria. So you got to make sure that that tube stays in place the whole time.
But other than that, he's got gleaming white toofers.
And good breath.
We hope you had fun and learned a thing or two along the way. We'll be back here again next week with even more animals and some wild adventures. Until then, thanks for watching